This is Futurebuilders podcast, and I'm your host, Teemu Uotila. I'm an enthusiastic future explorer working with a Finnish tech company. Together with my guests, we are building the future today. Are you in? This is Futurebuilders podcast with Tomi Kaukinen. He's an entrepreneur, burnout survivor, and keynote speaker. He currently runs License to Fail service, a resource for startup tips and tricks, in addition sharing stories from the world of entrepreneurship. Together with him, we will be finding out how to recognize burnout, how to survive burnout, maintaining balanced life. So, welcome to Futurebuilders, Tomi.
Thank you.
Glad to have you here. Tell us a little about your background and why we are sitting here, actually. You have a very interesting history.
Well, I don't know how far I should stretch back, but if you go back, I don't know, maybe 10 years. I'm originally from Sweden.
Yeah.
Moved to Finland in 2007, started working for real estate funds, managing as local asset manager for JP Morgan in Finland. I was doing that for 5 years here until I experienced what would be called some kind of existential crisis. That was the first step toward kind of second life. So when you start making money, which was my dream, and I got into a certain point where I could buy material things.
Yeah.
And but then I noticed that most of my time will be spent walking to work and doing stuff that basically only involves moving money from a place to another or
mechanical stuff.
Yeah. So it was like, okay, well, I can buy a big TV, I can do this, but from 9 to 6 or whatever I worked, more than that, of course, but was like, did I really like it? So I started feeling like money might not be everything in life.
Yeah.
So in 2012, I quit and started my first startup. And I think my income, according to the tax sheets, went down to a fifth of what I had made. But the funny part was that I was happier than ever. I was at home like, yes, this is awesome. I have autonomy over my life. And
no one is bossing me around.
Exactly. And when they still call me from these guys from Frankfurt or whatever it was, I could, for the first time in my life, just push the red button.
Now I'm gonna answer.
Yeah. So that started my startup life, and when you get into that life, the first year or two is just ecstasy. Yeah. It's like being in love. Everything is fun. You're just like excited. It's like, wow, is this possible? Can you feel happy while working? Is this and the problem with, I think, that too, because everything has a problem, is when we started working in Spain and we started working with football clubs, and we even hired the one director from Real Madrid to our team, and almost every day was just like, is this really happening? So the kicks you get accustomed to those.
Yeah.
So my brain was saying, look, you need more. And then I got challenged by a couple of friends to do Ironman competitions. So I was like, well, that seems like a good idea. And started doing that. And I completed my first in 2016 in Copenhagen. It's like, nice. But the funny part is that when I crossed the finish line, I had thought that this is going to be kind of a life-changing moment of like everything. But then I was like, okay, that was weird.
That was the goal line, and I feel the same.
Yeah, exactly. It took. I had a couple of 3 or 4 days when I was like, yeah, I'm an Ironman, But then after that, it was like, back to normal.
Yeah.
Okay, what now? What happened then was I started thinking, falsely of course, that if I do a more difficult Ironman.
Yeah, you get more kicks.
Yeah, more kicks. So I signed up to Zurich Ironman, and well, we can get back to that soon. But that's a short history of me. Graduated from Stockholm School of Economics in finance, as a finance major, and I thought that making money would be nice, but now you know what happened. And the reason why I'm here is, well, a combination of a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
So I don't know if I should get right into it or
Yeah, I mean, we can go with that, having this hectic startup life after the honeymoon is over, the reality kicks in.
Yeah.
So, and then you realize that, well, this side is also very problematic, how to continue and how to, motivate yourself.
Yeah.
And then, things start, crumbling on your shoulders.
Exactly,
Yeah.
and one of the things, there are several good things with startups. For example, people who haven't been involved in startups really don't understand the pace with which you can make decisions.
Yeah.
Like, people don't really understand. They're like, big corporations are saying, we're fast. You're like, what? Like, I can make a decision like now.
We can change the whole company's, strategy.
Exactly. Yeah. We can change policy like this, and they don't get it. And so that was a good experience. I was like, damn. So you get used to that.
Yeah.
You get used to like, oh my God, I can just wake up one morning and like, okay, we're doing this.
Yeah.
And then the other thing that you learn is to cope with probably extreme stress.
Yeah.
I always thought, if I don't get a monthly salary, oh my God, how will I make it? And a couple of years in the startup life, you're like, okay, we have no money in the account, we can't pay any salaries, but it's gonna be all right.
Yeah. We're gonna do this.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, so it's like the mind just shifts totally to this weird, risk-seeking, crazy person who just thinks that everything will be all right in the end. So a lot of good things. But then the negatives, especially as a founder, especially as a CEO, I would say, I used to think that CEOs were wow, fucking superhuman.
Brilliant people.
Yeah, but in the end, now I can't. I don't think I at the moment would ever want to be a CEO of any company ever again, because you are in charge of basically everything in a startup. I wanted to make sure the employees are good, that we have money, the clients, how does the product look, and if it doesn't work, who gets the blame?
Yeah. Yeah, you can only look in the mirror in that point.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's not worth it. And if you like selling and like being with people, don't become the CEO.
Yeah.
Because the CEO involves so much other things. Like,
yeah.
One of the most important parts of CEO is in the beginning is recruiting the right people, building the right teams and stuff. And it turns into a lot of admin stuff.
Yeah.
So you just become this kind of weird admin person.
Yeah, that's sort of like the problem, that once you become this admin person, you are not anymore the person who evolves the company and can move it forward, because
exactly
all the time is spent on bureaucracy or.
So if I think the problem why people want to become CEOs, as with mine, is ego. You just want like I did this, but if you have a strong enough character or person, like, stay with what you like doing.
Yeah.
Don't look for the attention.
You don't need to climb the ladder, in order to be happier.
Exactly. So I don't know, Steve Jobs. Well, he was CEO.
Yeah, he was.
But he was very much into the product. And maybe Jony Ive from Apple, the design chief, he is still in there grinding, as I understand. He stayed there. He didn't want to become, he's there.
He was like happy with his position and stuff. Yeah.
So unless you have a fragile ego, stay with what you love doing.
And then if you look at the startup life, when things get to this sort of like grind, and you start to feel burnout and stuff like that. So that's sort of like, when did you hit that point?
Yeah. So I don't know where to start, because the big problem with these things, there are several, is the fact that if you look in Finland, for example, if you look at how people talk about burnout, the first thing, if you read the kind of categories or the definitions of it, it's like being tired, not getting up from bed in the morning, becoming cynical, having, one of the things is like lowered professional self-esteem. And you're like, dude, what do you think in a startup? You have low self-esteem like every other day. and so I can't relate. So for me, it was a combination of, we were running out of money.
Yeah.
We were in the middle of changing our business from B2C to B2B.
Yeah.
Then I was training for the next happiness of the Zurich Ironman. And I was traveling a bit to Singapore, New York, so it was jet lagged and stuff. So the first thing that happened was sleep.
Yeah.
That started deteriorating. But I didn't notice it because I had been having sleeping problems for such a long time, but they became, really irregular.
Yeah.
And I had also a Garmin back then, and I had it on when I slept. And I went back like a year ago and checked out the patterns of sleep, and it's like so inconsistent that if I had one good night, the next would be horrible.
Yeah.
So it was like a saw.
So it's actually a chronic problem then. And
Yeah.
if you have a chronic sleep deprivation, it's very damaging for your health.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so that was the first. And then I went to my friend. He has a gym, and he has this blood pressure monitor. And just he said, let's check your blood pressure, man. I don't know if he suspected something or anything. Then we checked, it was like through the roof. I don't know, 170 through 96.
Oh, that's heavy.
I was like, But my brain was like, well, it's probably because of I ate too much salt or too hard training and
you start justifying yourself.
Exactly. Start rationalizing. It's going to be okay. But then we tried it again, and it didn't drop. Then I just ignored it.
Yeah.
I was like, I don't care. Then actually, when it all culminated, was the body starts giving you signals which you ignore.
Yeah.
So the first thing that happens is the sleeping becomes totally irregular. The second thing that happens is probably the blood pressure goes up. So it's trying to tell you look, dude, calm down.
Yeah.
And don't be in this agitated state all the time. And I read something about these patterns. Difference between men and women on average is that men tend to end up in a situation where I ended up with physical pain, and women tend to break down mentally.
Yeah.
So crying and emotional bursts and stuff. While men, since we don't understand these signals or don't want to understand, the body hits goes to the only solution that will stop you, extreme pain.
Yeah.
So that's why it's so common that men have lower back pains, stomach pains, headaches, and these kind of stuff, because we're not listening.
Yeah.
We're just
the body is needs to ramp up this communication to you.
Or you're not stopping. Okay, we're just gonna keep going until you do. And finally it did. On the 1st of May 2017, I came home from a bike session with my friend, and I started oof, what is this pain in my lower abdomen? It felt like somebody was kicking me in the groin. And I don't know what happened. I can't describe the feeling, but it hurt so much, and I felt such anxiety that the time just stopped.
Yeah.
And I was just sat at home, swallowing it. What the is wrong with me?
Yeah.
And I immediately called the doctor and I don't know what's wrong. Can I come in tomorrow? And then I came in. And the doctor checked my prostate and pushed my lower abdomen, and he was like, well,
physically okay.
Yeah, you're okay, man. It's like, okay. And he was like, well, you have sleeping problems, so just take melatonin.
Yeah.
So I got melatonin from him. It's okay. well, I went home, and 2 days later, I tried to sleep, and this horrible burning sensation again came through all my body. So at 10 or 11 in the evening, I went to the emergency unit in Hartman, where they did ultrasound of my lower abdomen and testicles and back, and took blood samples and urine samples, you know, all the stuff.
Nothing.
Nothing. And I was like, it was kind of relief, because I'm very hypochondriac. So it was like, the first thing I thought was like, I have cancer. I'm gonna die. And then when I have nothing, it's like, whew, good, but it's still there.
Yeah.
So what I did was, I thought it was training.
Yeah.
Because the urologist said you might have kind of some hernia or something down here, and everything was just, everybody was talking physical. Yeah.
And since they are, you know, experts in the industry,
they
you
want to
listen, like,
yeah. So then 2 days later, I didn't trust the ultrasound because I still had the pain, so I went to Mehiläinen, the private clinic, and ordered another ultrasound. So I did another ultrasound, and he said also, like, there's nothing wrong with you. It's like, this is weird. So because of the constant pain and anxiety I had, he ordered me some opioids for pain. So I took one in one evening, and just like, you know, everything felt really good. It's like, but it felt so good that I started getting respiratory problems. So I can't breathe. So I panicked. So I called the hospitals and like, what the hell is happening with me? And I got really like, this was a horrible time in my life, and it sucks talking about it still. So they said like, no, it's just a side effect. So just take it easy. But the pain was gone. My body was probably relaxing. It felt nice. And that's a problem with the opioids. They feel goddamn good.
I think in the US they are the biggest problem currently.
The opioid crisis. And I totally get it, because you've been having this pain for several weeks, and they just like gone.
Yeah, gone.
So that was scary. So then I canceled meetings in Spain. I stayed home. I stopped training for 2 weeks, and it disappeared. I was like, I feel good. That's good. So that was super confusing, because I was like, what the hell just hit me? And now it's gone. And what happens? Back to the grind.
You start.
So 1 week later, I went to compete in a cycling competition of 110 kilometers, Giro d'Espo. Then I went to triathlon competitions, like smaller sprints. And I was like, well, obviously that was just some weird muscular thing. Then all of a sudden, again, it smashed me in the face in June. Like one month later, it came back. And I thought, well, it must be training. Then it lasted only for 5 days, and then it disappeared. It's like, what is this? I mean, it was so confusing, because I didn't know if it was training or work. But I wanted to think it was training. And then I was discussing with the financiers, investors, about closing the round. And then, as often what happens when stress relieves, so we closed a financing round, which gave us kind of almost, 7, 8, 9 months of runway. And that was on the 7th of July. And the next week, it struck, and it never stopped. So, and the funny thing is, I had booked the Ironman for the 31st of July. So I felt horrible at home. I was taking these pills to sleep, just trying to escape, because that's what you do, because pain literally stops you. It's like the master of mindfulness. It's like, it's so ironic, because when you're having a good time is just like woo, and when it hurts, it's like,
slows down.
It's slow. So I was horribly in pain at home, but I decided, like, this is so stupid, you know. It's like, well, I'm gonna go and do this Ironman, and then I'm gonna rest. Smart.
That's sort of like athlete mentality.
Yeah.
I'm gonna just
later
do this.
So I go there. I feel awful. I take sleeping pills every night before the competition. I wake up. I do the swimming part, like 3.8 kilometers. Feel okay. And I was like, huh. And then I started thinking, like, maybe this is what I needed. Like, no, it's not what you need. and jump on my bike, and I ride like first 85 kilometers, and I'm like, well, no pain. It's like, okay. And then I reached a point in Zurich called the Heartbreak Hill.
That's sort of ironic.
Very ironic. So when I hit that, I go up, I'm like feeling quite well. I have a video where a friend is like, how's it going? And I'm like, this is paper. It's nothing. When I reach the plateau on top, I feel like, I can take a very deep breath. And I start watching my heart rate monitor, and I see the pulse is like going from, heart rate is going like from 150, 160, 170, 80, 90, 200, 210, 220. I'm like, what the hell is this? I go down. I'm like, okay. And then I start thinking, like, maybe this is just some kind of heart rush.
Yeah.
Because sometimes I get them. So I put my legs up and pause for a minute and just lie on the floor, thinking that once it goes down, I'm going to continue. Yeah. Of course.
No stopping there.
No stopping. No, like DNF is not an option.
That's a very bad label to have. DNF.
Yeah. So I lay there for 30 minutes, and a guy comes and they're like, "Do you need help?" I'm like, "Stay away from me, because if you take help, you get disqualified."
Yeah.
So even if my heart was racing at 200, I was like, "Don't help me." The stupidity. So then I jump on my bike, and I thought that maybe if I put some blood circling, it's gonna go down. All these stupid excuses. And then a couple of kilometers later, I stop, and I noticed, it's not gonna go down. It's been now 1.5 hours with this high pulse. And I said, like, okay. Then I become scared. I'm like, call the ambulance. I'm gonna like quit.
Yeah.
So the ambulance comes, and they're like, "Hey, what's up?" And I was like, "This is what's up."
And it's not broken.
And they're like, "Whoa, and you're just been there for 1 hour?" I was like, "Yeah." All right then. And then we go to the hospital, and that's when I felt for the first time how it feels to be kind of in a non-EU country. So the first thing they say in Switzerland is like, "Insurance, Mr. Kaukinen." I was like, "Come on, we'll take it later." So they take me in, and after lying there for a couple of hours, they tried different techniques to kind of get the heart rate going down. They decide it's time for injection of adenosine.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, what the hell is this? And
so it helps you sleep. And
exactly. Yeah. So it's supposed to kind of calm the heart down. So I called my mom, and I was like, "Do you know anything about this adenosine?" She was like, "Yeah, I got it once when I had this heart stuff." And I was like, "Okay, like, is it dangerous or what is it?" They're like, no, it just feels like a truck like rolls over you. I was like, well, that's nice. So they put adenosine in, and I can hear in the background like beep, 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 my heart all the time. Then they put it in, and it's like, and I just keep hearing like beep, beep, beep. I'm like, shit, it's not coming down.
Yeah.
And then they're like, "Oh no, we're just gonna double up, and then we're gonna go again." It's like, oh well, great. And then comes the truck,
once again,
and then beep, beep, beep immediately. It's like, okay. And then the doctor, she's like, "Well, here's a Snickers bar,
Run along."
Yeah, run along, and then I was like, that was a shock. But when I come home from Zurich, I book another Ironman.
Because you did not finish that, so it sort of started bothering you that I want to finish it.
Yeah, and I actually tell my friends, like, yeah, maybe I should. And my friends were like, is it really that smart? and I noticed that when I booked it, I got this horrible anxiety.
Yeah.
So a week later, I was like, I'm gonna cancel this. It didn't feel okay. So then, for the next six months, I lived with this pain. I stopped training, and every day I woke up, felt fairly okay when I woke up. I was quite alert, but I was Googling symptoms all the time.
Yeah.
But I never went in to Google symptoms of like burnout, because for me burnout was like waking up tired and all this stuff, but I wasn't. I was having these horrible, especially a need to pee all the time, which I now know is because your body is in this fight or flight mode, so you want to empty your bladder. But I didn't get it then, so I wanted to be sure that I didn't have anything, so I went to do all the physical checkups. So we did colonoscopies, one other ultrasound again, just ran. I think I went 20 times to doctors, and finally, they said like, we've done everything. I mean, you don't have anything. That's when I kind of started realizing that maybe this is not training.
Maybe it's not physical.
And the reason why I didn't think about it, that it could be work related, was the fact that when I was on holidays or took some weekends off, I felt horrible as well. So I was like, I should feel good when I don't work, but I didn't. So it was really confusing as well, because I felt constantly down and depressed and cynical and just like trying to smile, and I felt obligations to work with the company since we found.
Of course, because you have some guilty feeling there, and.
But then in I think it was December, like 7 months after the first symptoms, I went to see a psychiatrist, and he said like, well, we basically excluded the physical stuff. So it's possible that all this stuff you're experiencing is real, but it's not real. It's in the head. I was like, really? So he gives me these antidepressants and said like, look, we need maybe to get your balance in your brain in order. But then my first reaction was, I'm not taking that stuff. I don't want to go, because I thought it was a huge step to go into antidepressants. So I thought, okay, I'm gonna increase my mindfulness practices and try to walk or cope with it. But it didn't get better. It just got worse and worse and worse. I flew to Singapore to close a deal for our business, and I wake up in the morning after 1.5 hours of sleep, and I actually write a mail I send it to myself just to remind me how it was when I was at the bottom. It was 6th of November. I wrote it, and it just states basically that how totally horrible I was feeling, because I was afraid that I might forget. So that's the only note I have actually to myself. And after writing that mail to myself, 7 hours later, I was in Kuala Lumpur closing a deal with a big media house, smiling and pushed.
Trying to be happy.
Trying to be happy. And I posted on LinkedIn, and you get the kudos. And I was like, oh. And then I flew back to Singapore. I went to the hotel and slept for 12 hours. And it continued. I flew to slush Tokyo, just like biting my teeth and like swallowing. And that's where I decided to, maybe I should take these pills. So I started taking the pills, and thought, because it wasn't to become kind of better, it was because I could keep working. And it didn't help, not that much at least. And that the trip to the slush Tokyo was the last I did outside Europe. And when I came home a couple of weeks after that, I decided like I need to leave everything. So I went to the doctor, and he wrote me sick leave. And I got diagnosed with because the thing is, Finland doesn't have burnout as a diagnosis.
Oh, so it's not a sickness officially.
No, there is something called ICD-10, which is kind of the tautiluokitus. It's like classification of diseases, and it's not part of it. In the States it is, in Sweden it is. But in Finland, you get diagnosed as depression. But I also did the depression test, and I was depressed. But the funny thing is, I was diagnosed with depression, anxiety disorders, and all these kind of labels. But
they all correlate together anyway. So
yeah, they're in a symbiotic relationship, if I may say. So the funny thing is that in my first sick leave paper, I have what is called like a light depression. And this is due to the actual ecstasy I felt when I decided to jump out.
Yeah.
Because when I decided I don't need to do this anymore, I got so relieved that immediately my kind of went up. And it's called the opponent process. It's like a psychological process where if you experience like pain, what follows is usually feels really nice.
Yeah.
So what happened was that all this pain kind of subsided, and I started feeling like, this burden is off my shoulders. But then when I've been at home for a couple of months, it went to moderate depression.
Yeah.
So it went normalized kind of. So the initial euphoria was just kind of a scam.
Yeah.
So then we come to the second part of the burnout, of the depression. Now I finally had it and I felt relieved. But what happens is that when you build a company where you're kind of the front face, you have employees, you feel important, you have peer group stakeholders. All of a sudden, I not allowed to train because I wasn't able to I need to, what do you say, recuperate.
Yeah.
So I couldn't train. I had no company. Basically everything that gave me energy and I like to do was just like, we're gonna just remove this from your life. So I was sitting at home, I was like, okay, what now? Like, what the hell now? What am I gonna do?
That's the second existential crisis that you have.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's good point. I didn't think about it that way, but yeah, it was. Because I felt super empty, useless, like what's my role here? So that was a really weird time. I just started walking my dog, staying at home, reading books, but I felt really weird. And that's when I noticed that, just hanging home and not doing anything, that's not good either.
Yeah.
So I was like, I need to do something, but I was afraid that doing it might, put me back. So I went to a place called The Shortcut at Maria and asked them like, can I have some seminars or, just pro bono stuff?
Yeah.
They said like, yeah, we can arrange that. And then they called me and said, do you want to go to Nigeria and Kosovo to do pro bono work with startups? I was like, yeah. So then I went there and I felt like, okay, I felt meaningful again.
Yeah.
And that's where it dawned upon me, like people need things to do, something to do. Even I read that even prisoners in prisons, they want to do these like license plates or whatever it is.
Because
the boredom is like it's intolerable. And that's how I felt. But
I think there's this. I think it was this French philosopher back in the 1700s or something like that said that the greatest problem in mankind is that man cannot sit in an empty room by himself.
Yeah.
You get bored and like.
Yeah. So then I started doing this pro bono work, and then I actually also outed like my story in LinkedIn. I was very skeptical of putting it into LinkedIn at first. I did it in Facebook, and I got a lot of support. So I was like, because I thought that people who burned out or become depressed were kind of losers. Yeah. I'm a Superman.
Yeah, that's gonna happen to me.
Yeah, exactly. But it's funny how life humbles you. So then after long thinking, I decided, okay, what the hell? I'm just gonna put it out there.
Yeah.
Tear down the kind of defense walls and just like, here I am. And the feedback was surprisingly good. Really? People don't throw eggs at me like, you loser,
You cannot cope with the world.
I was living in total like illusion that people would kind of think that I'm a stupid idiot, you know. But it was totally reverse. It's like, okay, well. And then a lot of people contacted me privately and said, you want to go for a coffee? And because I also feel like this. And then I noticed that what we see is kind of the top.
Yeah.
There are so many people down here that never out their story. I was like, okay. And then I got the chance to talk in Slush about it. That's when I thought like, well, maybe I could talk about this. And I started also writing my blog, this License to Fail, and as a part of kind of my therapy.
Yeah.
So writing all the stuff I know about financing and just giving it for free, and just because I did it for me, and not for them in a way, kind of like I just wanted to get this on paper. And then in February, I thought that, well, maybe I could spend the year talking about this. So I work with My Speaker now, which is kind of speaker platform, and they book me on gigs. So I'm kind of new to the speaker business. And the funny thing is with the speaker business is that when you've been in a startup for 7 years, the only thing you've been doing is pitching. You've been on stages everywhere, and nobody ever paid you for it. So it felt really weird that like, okay, I'm gonna talk and somebody's gonna pay.
So someone's gonna give you money for that?
Like what the hell? I'm just talking. You know? So that felt weird. But then I noticed also, which was kind of a little bit annoying, or is that talking about it felt nice in theory, but then when I had my first gigs, I was like, this is not easy.
Yeah, because hard. You need to reflect yourself and go to this catharsis.
Yeah. So I felt really awkward, and I still do actually. I had a gig a week ago, and I was like, "Whew, this is too personal, man."
Yeah.
and so it's a bit therapeutic for me as well. But I think I just need to talk about it more openly. But I noticed that I have a tendency to try to box it as this wasn't me. This was some other person, like a third person. So, but it's really painful, and but also maybe it's quite a relief to kind of humanize yourself.
Yeah, and hopefully at least some will, get something and recognize that they might be on the same path. That they, might be on a burnout. Or also saw a picture of you with all the medicines that doctor gave you. That's a huge stack of pills that they order, and none of those actually work, right?
Not much, no. The opioids, well, sorry, this is not. I'm not endorsing it, but yeah, they work for extreme anxiety. But one of the better things you could do is mindfulness practice. So some of the routines I did after I stayed home little over a year ago was that I built this Berlin Wall between my phone and my bedroom, for example. So no phones in bedrooms. So my phone's always in the living room. First, it was weird because I'm used to waking up, checking and going to sleep, last thing checking. So it was like, whoa, something is missing. But now it's turned the opposite. So now it's like, you do not belong in this room. Here is where I read books. So that was the first thing. The second thing I would do, I was taking the mindfulness like seriously, because it's always been a little bit like work always trumped.
Everything.
So if I had to work, it was like mindfulness has to step aside. But now it's the opposite on that again. So I really do it every day when I wake up, either in bed or sitting down in the living room. So that's another good thing. Then I started walking, because I couldn't run or anything. So I started walking long runs. So it kind of a mix of calming down your brain, but also I think the most important thing was getting back to social connections with friends. I noticed that now when I meet friends, I feel the symptoms go away. They went away. It's like, okay, that's weird.
Social interaction cures you.
That and the meaningfulness is probably the largest components. I started feeling better when I started feeling meaningful again. And that, I think it's a nice bridge to the fact that, where are we heading? I don't think the biggest problem in the future is going to be these kind of stupid overperformers like me. I'm kind of fatalistic in my keynotes into the fact that we're always going to have a certain percentage of people that are going to hit the wall regardless of what you tell them.
Yeah.
And that's just, I'm sorry, it's a constant.
It is. And people need to realize themselves, if
Yeah.
they want to fix it. And it doesn't help that if your friend is telling you that.
It doesn't help at all.
You're not listening.
It doesn't help at all. And Nassim Nicholas Taleb writes in Skin in the Game, like he says that you can never fully convince anyone he's wrong.
Yeah.
Only reality can. And that's so true. So I think that percentage is going to be static. There will be these type A persons that just going to go fucking crazy. And then the biggest chunk will probably come from a sense of meaninglessness of modern work.
Yeah, that's a huge problem for many. If you look at the tech industry, those who leave from tech industry, they always go do something else, like roasting coffee or brewing beer or something totally different.
Yeah.
Even they're very good coders or designers, they just want to do different things.
It's funny, yeah. Artisanic stuff, like with your hands building, is coming back.
Yeah.
And so we're kind of moving in a direction that everyone kind of intuitively might know it's wrong, but they still think that happiness is there. And then they sit in the office and are like,
is this really happiness?
Yeah, because I felt that already in my first job, but I somehow adapted to it, which I think people do, because I came from like Stockholm School of Economics. Then I saw this vision of working like Gordon Gekko, Wall Street or whatever.
Big side office, corner office.
But then you come there and your work is basically sitting in front of Excel.
Yeah.
And I felt the first months of my job, I was like, oh my God, is this what I'm going to do? This sucks.
Yeah. For the next 30 years.
Yeah. I had a huge crisis, a small crisis back then as well.
Yeah.
But then when you get more responsibilities, you start building meaning into that.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So work becomes your identity in many ways. That it's gonna be intertwined in you. It was funny when I was in Amsterdam and visited this museum, and they had this happiness face thrown in there. So it was like general statistic description of people's happiness, that you have the smiley face starting when you're 25, and then it goes all the way down, and then it peaks once you hit 65. So and that's sort of like, but it makes sense in a sense if you think about it. Life from 0 to 25, you're studying, you're at school, you're hanging out with friends, your parents take care of you, no money problems, stuff like that. Of course, it's fun.
Yeah.
And same, then you hit the job market, and your studies are over, you work for 40 years, you get family, whatnot. Then 65, all the kids are out. You no longer need to work because you have a retirement plan and stuff like that. So then you're once again happy. I was like, looking at that's quite sad actually, that you have this 40-year gap in here where it sort of like goes down and then slowly rises up.
Yeah, but hopefully the 65 we don't have to go that far. But
yeah,
I still feel, despite all that's happened, that life is actually getting better.
Yeah.
And I sometimes miss the euphoria of being like 20 or 25 when going to the bar or going to a trip. You're like, wow, that you don't get anymore. It's like more stable. But the calmness you get, and I love that.
Yeah. Now when you hit the bar, you're like, oh God, I'm gonna have such big hangover tomorrow.
Exactly.
And drinking water and stuff, like things you would never do when you're 20.
Yeah. But the amount of experience you get, and the funny thing is that you still feel like a kid up here, but once you have done a lot of stuff in your life, you become senior.
Yeah.
So you can like give advice to people and they listen. You're like, really? What the fuck? I'm just a kid,
I'm just as dumb as you are. So.
Yeah. Everybody just walks around pretending stuff.
How's the recovery from your point of view? Has it been sort of like this slow moving, or has there been some leaps and bounds from the recovery process?
Very slow.
Yeah.
Very, very slow. And first, I think in the beginning of this year, I became a little bit frustrated.
Yeah.
Like, how long is this shit gonna last? When I went for a run, for example, and I had been symptom free for a week or so. I was like, well, maybe I could take a short run.
Yeah.
And immediately, comes back. Like, so I tried to fight it. I went back to the psychiatrist. I was like, okay, maybe I can quit the pills. I just wanted to move on. But no, slow. And the first seminars that I had, it came back. So I went to a work psychologist, and we started talking about the process of dealing with it. And she said good things like, your system still thinks that work is bad.
Yeah.
Even if the danger is over. Like, you're not stuck with all these money problems and startup life anymore, but your brain hasn't understood it yet.
Yeah.
So we started working with this cognitive stuff, like just make your body understand that it's fun and it's not the same, it's voluntary, So that helped a lot as well, just like positioning yourself a little bit differently. But I still have some problems now and then.
Yeah.
If I start overbooking my calendar or whatever, it comes back. And I think that's quite positive.
Yeah.
Because I think inside me is a person that is gonna pop out and go fucking bananas if I don't kind of keep him on a leash.
Yeah.
So the warning system is good. So
yeah, it's good that, well, now that you have gone through this process, you know how to listen to your body also.
Definitely, yeah. But it's there. Sometimes, some days when I feel like, wow, this is going to be a great day, I tend to want to skip the meditation and mindfulness stuff. So it's still there. So I'm like, no, we're going to start this like today. Take it easy.
Yeah.
But it's strong, man.
I think this consistency of doing the meditation and this transcendental thinking, it definitely is a factor for you.
Yeah.
You have this sort of systematic thing that you do every day.
Yeah, it
so
helps.
It stabilizes.
Routines help.
Great. But where can people hear more about you? Where can they hear you speak?
Well, wherever they book me. So my speaker, they arrange my gigs, and also I have my page licensed to .fail.
Yeah.
I got the fail domain. I'm very proud of that. So it's licensed to .fail. It's in Finnish, unfortunately, for everyone. I have some English articles on Finnish public financing and public funding and stuff. But I do gigs in English.
Yeah.
I held one here in Epicenter quite recently. So you can send me a mail on my page to the contact form if you want to hear more. Podcasts like this, I mean, I love being in these things.
Yeah.
It's therapy for me, as I said.
Yeah.
So yeah, just holler.
Yeah.
And Instagram, it's licensed to .fail as well. So I'm not in Twitter. I don't like Twitter. It's just, Twitter is
too short, and you don't get the whole context in there.
No, it's so negative. It's like a cancer, spreading.
Yeah, I mean that's true. If you look how people act on Twitter, if you, for instance, if I look our media flows, is that if you put negative news versus positive news, positive news get very minimal traction, but the negative ones gets 9 to 10 times more traction. Always, it always makes me depressed. Also, like, come on, why do this negative and fake news stuff always,
Trump,
Trump everything. So,
no, that's why I actually like LinkedIn a lot nowadays, because even if it's a little bit tight with what the content is about, still the good thing with it that negativity is almost absent.
Yeah, it's non-existent there. Yeah.
Because you have your person, photo, like who you like, where you work, everything. So I think people are a lot more cautious.
Yeah, because you cannot hide with some random
avatar.
hashtag.
Yeah, exactly. So I like LinkedIn because you get many times a good discussion, but the final edge of is gone.
Yeah.
People don't go all out bananas, there.
Yeah.
So
and also because it's I think in my mind it might be that it also reflects their work person and work life. So you have your employees and employers in there.
Exactly.
And so you need to be more careful and.
And then I have this Finnish older.
Yeah.
So I track my sleep nowadays. That's my first priority. And the book, by the way, Matthew Walker, The Why We Sleep.
Oh, that's an excellent book.
Oh,
yeah.
I read it twice, and the first time I read it, I'm like, because he's like, even one night's bad sleep will destroy your DNA.
Yeah,
like 10 years, like how much do I have left? You know?
Yeah, it's a. We've also tried to see if he would be joining our podcast, but so far no luck. But I mean, he's an excellent. I listened to his podcast with Joe Rogan, and I read the book, and I was like, that also opened my eyes, because before that I didn't think about sleeping in such similar way. I was like, oh, that seems important, and this guy seems to know what he's talking about. So.
Yeah, my friend sent me actually, a burnout friend sent me a link to Joe Rogan with him.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my God. And then the book was sold out, so I just ran every week and checked if it had come, and it was great.
Yeah, so that's for everyone on your reading list.
Yeah, Matthew Walker.
Excellent, Tomi. Thanks for being here.
Thank you. It was great.
Yes,
I was talking a lot, but
No worries. Excellent. You just listened to Future Builders podcast with Tomi Kaukinen, talking about how to survive burnout. Join the discussion and follow us on social media. You can find us by using keyword Future Builders, and visit our website wearefuturebuilders.com. If you have any questions, recommendations, or you want to be our guest, please drop us an email, team@wearefuturebuilders.com.